At long last, we have now finally got word from James Gunn what his plans are for DC films, for the future of the DC connected universe. So that's what we're talking about in this episode of Legends of Podcasting. So joining me in the Wave Rider, we have
Stuart, Rob,
and I'm Liam. So, all right, so there's a lot that we're going to need to cover in this. So what we're actually going to do in order to make sure that we're giving everything its due diligence, we're going to split this up into 3 different episodes. So make sure that you have clicked subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this episode right now. Click that subscribe button so you'll be notified as we release the other ones as well. But yeah, all right, let's just start this off on the bigger picture. Stuart, why don't you start us off?
Thank you very much. Yeah. I think it's an interesting concept. So I've got positives and negatives at the same time of what you mentioned in his video. So I'm very curious to say he started off saying like that they're going to try and go for a universe where it's going to be film, animation, gaming, and TV, and
comics, wasn't it?
No. Like get
it wasn't comics.
One actor to do.
Oh yeah, that was it. The one actor, whoever voices a cartoon, will also have to be expected to take on the role in the live action.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think it's an interesting idea. It's good and bad at the same time. It's good that you get some continuity, but I think the negative side, I'm interested to see how they fix this. Would be, does that limit what the gaming and animation companies can do? Because you kind of can't have the same actor doing like a voice to a completely random. So like this new Batman film that's coming out in a few weeks, like the 1920s one. If you had, say Patterson, they picked Patterson to do it. Let's say, I know they're not, but let's say they did. Would his voice fit that Batman from 1920s? Would if Rocksteady did another Arkham game, would his voice fit that story that they're going to tell? The age of Batman during the story, things like that. Obviously, the animated universe that they've built over the past, I think 15 plus years, have all been very based on comic books. They've sort of taken Hush, they've taken Killing Joke, they've taken Dark Knight Returns, and they've used different actors for most of them. So I kind of feel like, would that limit what they're going to do? Is kind of my take on it.
I think you're right there. You've hit a point. I think it does seem like it on a paper. It's a really good idea to say, right, we've got one Batman, and it's going to be Chris Pratt, just to annoy the audience, and he's going to voice him, and he's going to play him, and everything we do is going to be Chris Pratt Batman. But like you say, what if you want to do an Arkham game? Or Warner Studios want to do something else with the license and want a Batman to appear in that? Is he then going to have to come across? And then what about established voice actors like Troy Baker and people who've played Batman before? Mark Hamill.
Are they now out of a job?
Are they out of a job? Yeah, it seems...
It's an interesting point. It does sound like that he wants to kind of do clean slate and just bring in a lot of new people. And I do think whenever I've looked at say the animated movies, and we get someone else that came in and did the voice of Batman that wasn't Kevin Conroy, at first I'd always be kind of like, it's not Kevin Conroy. But then there's so many instances where you're pleasantly surprised that some other new actors take on it. So on one hand, I see it being cool to have have that connection, have that continuity across all of it. At the same time, I don't feel like that's a necessary level of rigidity to have there. But one concern I have on this is, so he said, it was like, well, he's going to give directors will still have a lot of freedom to be able to tell the stories they want, but it has to fit within this greater story arc that they have, this greater universe, because everything is all going to exist within this shared universe. So the character that you see in the animated one will be the exact same version of the character as what's in the computer game and what's in the movie.
Yeah, that's going to limit. So that means it's a continuous story, right? So that's going to limit what you can tell.
Yeah, but not only is it going to limit what you can tell, but you then end up with an extreme version of the problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, which is the only way that you can actually properly understand a new movie is if you've seen all this stuff that came beforehand to understand how we got to this point and why certain characters are doing certain things.
That's a scale
creep.
This is going to be mental in video games as well. You had going back to my youthful days, Gears of War 2 ended on a really, really awesome cliffhanger, and then to understand where Gears of War 3 picks up in about 5 years later, you needed to have read 2 books and 3 comics. And if you haven't read any of that, why would you want to? You want to go from game A to game B. Why would you want to do all that?
Yeah.
It's like you say, Liam. It can get to an extreme scale creep if you're not going to be watching everything and reading everything and playing everything. Not everyone that watches a Marvel movie wants to go play a Marvel game. And you know,
there's a thing. I love having tie-in stuff all the time. Whenever there's let's say a big event in a comic, I always want to read all the tie-in issues that go with it. When you've got a TV show or a movie that has some tie-in comics to go with it, I like to get them. Yeah, it's cool. I'm not doing it for every single thing. And the idea that you could potentially have a movie come out that you can only properly follow, that's understand how the story got to this point by having watched the cartoons, played the computer games, and seen all the other movies before it, I feel like it's going to make them less accessible.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just movies, it goes the other way around. It goes for the computer games and for the cartoons as well. It's all like, it's going to make the computer games and the cartoons less accessible if you need to have seen all this other stuff beforehand.
Yeah, because someone
like me, I don't even play computer games. I don't have a game system.
Exactly, yeah. And some people that play games don't watch the movies. They just like playing the game. And when you were saying about exhausting as well, I was also thinking the other thing of like, who do you get as an actor that will commit to 10 years much work?
Because he said,
oh well, I mean, job stability is one thing there though. You'll get someone that's like, oh yeah, you want me to be Superman? I'm in this new setup. I'm Superman for life at this point.
Yeah, but some people,
because as soon as they're too old to play it on screen, they can still voice it in the computer games and the cartoons. Yeah, true.
It's just that that's I guess in my head, to be able to get this done, they need to bring out a young actor that I would guess be unknown. And when you're an unknown actor, it'd be good to start with to get your name out there. Will you be so busy doing voiceovers, TV shows, movies? Will you actually be able to act as anything else? Will be stuck
or will this contract?
Yeah, you probably won't.
Will this contract that Warner wants you to sign lock you in for 10 years, and you may get an offer of a lifetime to go off and play on stage in Broadway, the thing you've always wanted to be, but when you went into acting, but you can't because you're locked into another 5 years worth of DC projects.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. It's going to be an interesting to see how they. I mean, some of the stuff is not coming out until 2025. At least, so like the movie stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see who they find and how they're going to. Yeah, does that mean the DC animated movies are dead? Because they've been great. I've enjoyed.
They've
all been really good. So what you get?
That's the thing. It's like, it's the whole thing. Is like, don't try and fix something that isn't broken.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the DC animated movies, they have consistently been great from the beginning. So throughout different leadership that there's been at DC and Warner Brothers, those animated movies have continued to do really well. And be really well written, really well made.
We talked about this on the last podcast with the Doom that came to Gotham, that there's only a couple more in the pipeline. And seeing as what's happened with Titans this week and what's the other one? Doom Patrol. They've all been cancelled at the end of their current seasons because it looks like they're just cutting the line on everything. So are they going to wrap up those old animated features and then we're going to see that's it? Because looking at what he's announced so far, I appreciate there's other stuff he hasn't announced. This is just what's in the pipeline they've got going for this Chapter 1, they're calling it. But the only thing between now and 2025 is Creature Commandos and
the four movies are already
Waller spin-off.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk more about TV shows in one of our other episodes of Legends of Podcasting, and movies in another episode. So for this one, we're looking at the bigger thing. So one thing to think about here is we're talking about the continuity and everything. He did still make the point about how there will be content that exists under the Elseworlds brand.
Yes.
So
you know what that is? Brand. You know what that is? It's like, the Joker and the Batman made a shit ton of money. We probably shouldn't cancel it. Let's make an Elseworlds universe.
We can't cancel that stuff yet, so we're going to let it continue, and we're going to use the long-established Elseworlds.
I genuinely thought because they had the Penguin show with Colin Farrell and the other one
coming out. It's still coming.
I know it's still coming. I was concerned that they just turned around and announced that was going, but it's already in production apparently. What's the other one they were talking about doing?
They could still kill it.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
There was meant to be a Gotham show as well.
Yes, that was it. It's GCPD with
Yeah.
I'm forgetting.
I mean, that'd be interesting. I mean, the other ones that you mentioned Teen Titans Go. He didn't mention Superman and Lois.
No.
Or what I think is really interesting is the Harley animated show, which is a massive success. So I would hope that would stay.
Well, we'll see, because we know that Harley season 4 is due out this year.
Yeah, and they're doing a special Valentine's episode as well.
And you've got
I expect that pretty much every show that we have at the moment is going to end up getting just killed off, except for Peacemaker, because that's his show.
I know, that's such a nepotistic thing. It's like, and
but you know what? I agree. It's the total nepotism, and there's the news out there as well that he's casting his wife to appear in something else as well within DC. I'm like, all right, it is total nepotism, but reality is, if you're in that position, you've been given the keys to the entire DC universe. You'd be like, all right, I'm gonna get some people I like in here. And happy wife, happy life. I'm going to get my wife in.
You could at least be subtle about the damn thing, because it's just, you've got the Waller spin-off.
Pay you double what you should be as well, just so I can get a good Christmas present. And just the other thing I want to touch on quickly in this episode is, it's covering movies, but it's the movies we already know about. I thought it was quite interesting when he said the upcoming movies coming out. So Shazam is very much away from the Snyderverse, so that's going to continue. It sounds like there might be another one. Flash is then going to reset the universe, but then Aquaman is coming out after, and it's still going to be Jason Momoa. So does that mean Jason Momoa?
That's the thing.
Aquaman is
that's the thing that's really interesting on that, is to which of those are going to count as Elseworlds, and what doesn't, because
he said they're in the DCU.
Yeah, so that's the main DCU. Elseworlds is part of the DCU. It's just
it's DCU, and then it's Elseworlds underneath. So it's like the DCU. He said Shazam, Aquaman, Flash, and Blue Beetle are in the DCU. So
that's the thing, is you can't. It's difficult, especially with Aquaman coming out after Flash, because then the Flash is reset in the DCU. So this is something that we discussed in a previous podcast episode. That is the perfect opportunity perfect timing for all of this. That James Gunn's resetting the entire universe, and there is already in production a Flashpoint movie that's going to reset the universe anyway. So it's perfect. It can all tie in. You can get some great synergy there. But then to have Aquaman happen after it doesn't make sense unless it's.
Because I want him to be Lobo.
That would be great if they swap the release dates around. Just put out Aquaman first. Otherwise, the only thing I can think is that the Aquaman movie is going to be released after Flash, but it's still going to have taken place before the Flash.
Could be.
Yeah. I think that's the way it's going to be. So it's a prequel, a sequel to Aquaman, but prequel to the Flash movie, released out of continuity.
You could do a reshoot at the end where it's sort of he's saved the world, he saved Atlantis, everything's fine. And then suddenly this white flash comes along, like white light.
It would make
tag a bit on at the end. That's a good point.
If there's a big scene at the end of the Flash film where he resets the continuity, you have that come in at the end to show that it was before. Well, it's a quick bit of editing. That makes sense. But I'm just looking at a quote in the Hollywood Reporter here where he's asked, could any of the four leads from the film, so the Flash, Blue Beetle, Flashman, could reprise their roles in the new DCU project? And he said there is nothing that prohibits that from happening, which kind of omits by not saying it that they're not going to be continuing their roles anymore.
He said he was open to possibility. He said Ezra Miller's Flash could continue in this DCU. He's not saying that it doesn't. So it seems like he's just not going to give an answer yet, which might be partly down to the fact that he got so much backlash over getting rid of Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
With his argument of saying hey, we've got a version of Superman. He goes, I like this for Henry Cavill's version of Superman, but the version that we're looking to do, it's not Henry's version, so it doesn't work. So that's why we're not using it, and we're changing lots of characters, same as Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. So I think he got so much backlash that it could just be a case of he's like, I'm not gonna say yes or no, but going by the fact that Ezra Miller has upset so many people lately,
it wouldn't be.
I kind of feel as well, if you're gonna say before the films are out, oh yeah, they're not going to continue after this, and less people will go and see them. If you leave
you can't
be like, well, actually, Shazam might continue, so go and see the film. Then maybe afterwards they'll announce it. But
it's an odd kettle, because I'm just thinking about how you could potentially you've got the Flash. Ezra Miller's Flash could reset the timeline, as you say, which leads into this new DCU project. But then you could have him in the Speed Force, and he's there with the rest of the Snyderverse if you need to bring him back again. It just seems so strange with you know, like you say, this nepotistic stuff of, well, I made Peacemaker and I'm making Waller and I got my wife in all these shows. So despite us cutting the Snyderverse off at the ankles and starting afresh, we're going to continue with those 3 projects because they're mine. Just to confuse everyone.
Yeah, because I guess the end of Peacemaker, I've never seen. I know that I was spoiled by the end of it that the Justice League show up, right? And it's Jason Momoa and So
that's the thing. The Justice League. So spoiler for anyone who hasn't watched Peacemaker yet. If you haven't watched it, great show, really fun. Really fun, stupid show. Totally worth watching. But yeah, Justice League appears at the end. So, I mean, but Peacemaker came out of The Suicide Squad, which was a sequel to Suicide Squad, which the first one, Suicide Squad, directly references the events of Batman v Superman. So it's and it even has Batman in it. So it's well established as being part of the Snyderverse, and you have the carryover of Harley Quinn and also
Rick Flag.
Rick Flag and Amanda Waller is in the Suicide Squad. So you're still well tied into the Snyderverse. So Peacemaker is absolutely part of the Snyderverse. So if they're continuing it on, I don't see how you can say that is in the new DCU, and it's not an Elseworlds bit, and just saying that the Snyderverse kind of continues in its own little part of the Elseworlds universe, but we have reset at this point with Flashpoint.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's such a bizarre for what they were saying a few weeks ago and before Christmas with him cutting, saying we're not bringing Henry Cavill back, we're going to start again, to now going we're going to have this bit and this bit we like, and it just seems you're already stumbling yourself out the gate to try and start a new project if you're still holding on to everything that came before.
I get that. I mean, talking about new stuff, I reckon we should jump on to next show because it's.
I think So let's wrap that up for this episode. So that's it for this episode of Legends of Podcasting. We're talking about everything that's new with James Gunn's announcement with his plans for the DC universe, and about how it's all interconnected and how you're going to have the continuity across all different media, and you're also going to have the Elseworlds bit. Tell us what you guys think and girls think of all this news. What are your thoughts on this? Just let us know in the comments, wherever you're listening to or finding our podcast here, whether you listen to audio version or video version, there's going to be a comment section somewhere. Send us a note. Let us know what you guys think about this news. And you can always follow us on social media. Whatever social media you use, just look for Legends of Podcasting. Find us there. Send us a note. Be great to hear what the broader audience, the broader community thinks of this stuff as well, because obviously we're reading what all the news outlets think of this news, and a lot of those people, you've got people that are making extreme points just because they want to get more clicks. You've heard what our thoughts are, our honest thoughts are on this. It'd be great to hear what your honest thoughts are on it, so let us know. Let's get a conversation going. So make sure you click that subscribe button, and so keep an eye out for our next episode talking about more of this information about the DC Universe. So that's all from me.
All from me.
That's it from me.